Hi there and welcome to this lecture about the rise of the Roman Empire. My name is Marcus Henriksson and I'm a history teacher here in Sweden. Before the founding of Rome, we have 7 hills with 7 different kings. But then these two boys created a city either in the year 1814 BC or 753 BC. These two children were named Romulus and Remus. And according to legend, it all starts with a rape. The war god Mars raped a princess. She then became pregnant and gave birth to 2 twins, Romulus and Remus. And then they were thrown in the Tiber River to die, but were rescued and nursed by a she-wolf. A farmer later saw these 2 children and took care of them until they got older. They then decided to found a city between the 7 hills, which is now known as Rome. There are 2 main theories on how they did it. Theory 1. They disagreed about where the city should be located and founded. Romulus therefore killed his brother Remus and thus became the first king of Rome. Theory 2. Romulus built a great wall around the new city, and in order to protect it, Remus sacrificed himself, much like in the Harry Potter movies. Here is an interesting theory. According to some historians, the Romans in the beginning were basically a bunch of outlawed men who then kidnapped a bunch of women from nearby villages. But in the beginning, the Romans were not the masters of Italy. It were the Etruscans. They were really skilled at trade and diplomacy, and they also created the first gladiatorial games and horse races. And they were much more egalitarian than the Romans and the Greeks, who looked down at the Etruscans. The Etruscans let their women work with the same things as the men, gave them education, let them own land, and so on. In Rome in the year 500 BC, we have the king Tarquinius Superbus. And he was some kind of a tyrant. He killed everybody who stood against him, forced a large part of the population to work as slaves, and so on. He had a son, Sextus, and he raped one of Rome's most influential daughters, Lucrezia. Tarquinius had also previously murdered the same nobleman's brother. So Brutus had his brother killed and his daughter raped. He therefore started a revenge campaign and drove Tarquinius Superbus and his son Sextus from the city. After that, Rome became a republic. Rome would then be governed by a senate. The senate had 2 so-called consuls. These consuls had increased power and influence over a year, as well as veto rights. All male citizens of the city of Rome had the right to vote. They then elected representatives known as senators in order to rule the kingdom in their place. So a form of representative democracy, you can say. However, you should know that only rich people from certain families could be elected to become senators, also known as patricians. After that, Rome became a new trading metropolis, and the city got larger and larger. They also adopted some gods from the Greek, such as Ares became Mars, Aphrodite became Venus, and so on. Then we have a huge brawl between the rich and the poor in Rome. They solved this issue by write 12 tablets and set them up in the Roman Forum known as the Square, which then confirmed the rights and obligation of all Roman citizens, and since that day the rich, the patricians, and the poor plebeians were united. And they made up a new slogan, SPQR, which basically stands for the people and the Senate together. There were some benefits of Roman citizenship. In addition to the right to vote and the opportunity to reach high positions in the Roman society, Rome was very discriminating against those who didn't have the right to vote. They didn't receive the same defense in the Roman court system, they couldn't make trade agreements, and they also received much higher punishments for various crimes. So if you were a Roman citizen, you had a bunch of benefits and opportunities. They also could elect tribunes, champion of the plebeian people. In order for the poor people to have an increased influence and avoid further conflicts between the poor and the rich, they decided to create a bunch of tribunes. These people mainly come from the plebeians themselves and also had the right to veto in the Senate. But, however, they later would often be bribed by the wealthier patricians. So they basically created a corrupt system. But there were a few exceptions, such as the brothers Tiberius and Gaius, who wanted to give some of the lands of the rich people to the poor people. The result, they were murdered by the rich patricians. Rome, therefore, became increasingly independent. Since Rome's power and importance grew, the population increased, trade increased, their military capacity increased, and they therefore would be able to challenge the Etruscans for power in Italy. And around the year 450 BC, the Romans managed to gain independence from the Etruscans. And 200 years later, they took control of Italy as we know it today. After that, Rome began to challenge other powers in the region, such as Carthage. Carthage had some similarities to Rome. It also started with one large city who gained increased power by taking control of other areas and trade routes and so on. And Carthage in the beginning was much more powerful than the Romans. They had more experience than the Romans when it came to sea warfare. They also had a larger and bigger army and a larger navy. So many historians and people during this time believed that Carthage would win this war. However, the Romans made a great find. They found one of Carthage's boats and realized that they made all the boats in the same way, using different parts of the boat that were mass-produced. Romans then did the same thing, but added docks to the boats so that they could board their opponents. After all, the Roman soldiers were their main weapon. And since the Romans used this strategy, they therefore gained the upper hand during this conflict. So Rome came out victorious. After that, they tried to take Carthage, But this, however, did not succeed. Instead, the war would be very protracted. Carthage believed at one point, when the Romans had lost 3 large fleets at sea in storms, that the war was over, but the Romans attacked again and again and again, and Carthage had to surrender. The Romans then received large parts of Spain, Sicily, Corsica, and so on. Then we can see the Second Punic War, and it took place between the year 218 BC to 201 BC. In this war we can see a new general of Carthage known as Hannibal, and he succeeded in taking a large part of the army over the Alps and into Italy. However, many people die on the way. In Italy, Hannibal basically won every battle he got involved into, again and again and again, even though the Romans were significantly more than the Carthaginian soldiers and armies. Some historians even would say numbers like 30-1. Hannibal's greatest victory was at Cannae, and there we can see 500,000 of Hannibal's soldiers against almost 90,000 Romans. Hannibal used his cavalry in order to surround and destroy the Roman army, which you can see in the pictures here. So feel free to pause the video. Hannibal was a master strategist. By taking the Romans by surprise and using the terrain to his advantage, he was able to win battle after battle after battle. And the Romans got more and more desperate, so they started to burn down all their own farms in order to create a famine. This is also known as the scorched earth tactics. Hannibal received no help. He stood outside the gates of Rome, but he couldn't take the city. He therefore asked the rulers of Carthage to help him out with siege equipment and so on, but it never came. And he didn't get any help because those who ruled in Carthage believed that they were giving basically the powers to one man so that he could take both Rome and Carthage if he wanted to. So they were afraid of him. Another theory as to why Hannibal never received any aid was that he hoped that even more battles won against the Romans would make them surrender. Instead, Hannibal was finally defeated by the Roman general Scipio after a full 16 years of warfare and battles. Then we have the Third Punic War, and Rome is much more powerful and dominant during this time. So basically they create a large fleet with a bunch of soldiers on them. They then take these soldiers to Carthage and burn down the city. And they are then the new supreme superpower in the Mediterranean Sea. About 15,000 people from Carthage were then sold as slaves. According to legend, the Romans then salted the ground in Carthage so that nothing ever could grow there again. And here you can see the now new supreme superpower in the Mediterranean after Rome's victory over Carthage. After that, they also attacked Greece and took control of that area. The sources I have used for this video are World History, A New Perspective by Clyde Ponting, A History of World Societies by John P. McKay, Etruscan Civilization, A Cultural History, The World's History by Howard Spodek, History by Elisabeth Ivansson, Robert Sandberg and Mattias Tordai, All-Time History Maxi by Hales Algren, Börje Bergström and Arne Lövgren, The First Roman historical line by Tom Holland, some documentaries such as Rome, Engineering and Empire, Rome, the world's first superpower, Road to Rome, Hannibal, Part 1 and 2, Second Punic War, The Etruscans, Ancestors of Ancient Rome, Hannibal, the man who hated Rome, Roman Empire documentary from Timeline, Carthage, the Roman Holocaust, Part 1 and 2, Roman Legion against Macedonian Phalanx, the animated history of Italy, Part 1, Why Didn't Hannibal Attack Rome, Part 7, Etruscan Italian Civilizations Before Ancient Rome, Hannibal, Rome's Greatest Enemy, How One Man Became the Terror of Rome, Hannibal, Where Did the Gladiators Come From, Origins and Rise documentary, For the Glory of Rome, The True Cost of Roman Wealth, How the Romans Adopted the Greek Gods, Ancient History documentary, The First Punic War Oversimplified, The First Punic War Oversimplified Part 2, Roman Religion Before the Greeks, Ancient History documentary, Law and Order in Ancient Rome, Empire of Psychopaths, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, and some Wikipedia links. But feel free to leave the comments in the comment section below, otherwise I wish you a great day. Bye.